Ja siit tahab mingi selline tulla, aga seda hea. Ja siis ma sinna kommentaariks keegi ütles ka, et sama nimi on.
Niimoodi midagi või? Tundub suht sketši.
Aga siia vahele panen saaks okei. See tuleb selle, siin pulti kindlasti veel palju paremaks. Selle ma lüütin üldse välja, see on mahtunud.
Läks nii tüdile katki.
Saab laadida samal ajal, et saab laadida.
Vaata keerakas laadi mõttes. Jah, loed. Nice beer. Aga meil on midagi siia ette vaja, siis ta nagu toimuks paremini näiteks praegu.
Ma lähen raamat. Technology's there.
High tech. Kaastab faktor kaamera teisest poole. Siis saad faktorid selle peale.
Ma näen, kus probleem on. Aga kas ta on üle, kas sellel vahet, kas on vahet kummal pool see mobiilide lainitud on see?
Ei tohiks olla.
See raamat peale natukene.
Ei saa väga hästi seal panna.
Okei, nüüd enam ei jäänud, aga...
Võiks olla näitada seda keegi kogu aeg käest. Siis oled veel siin. Kuidas? Siis eestid siin.
Aga ma arvan, et on peegud on tegelikult siin vahel, sest see raamat ei jäänud väga palju peale. Aga kui see on natuke ülespoole seda liigub, siis ei jäänud peale. Aga kui ta on teistpidi...
Ma näen see, et ta on suht suur, et ta jääb püstima. See raamat on liiga kerge. Pane see ka siia peale.
Ma panen siis ainult selle. Ma panen siis ainult selle peale.
Aga ta või?
See on raske.
Jah.
Ja see ei ole nagu häirega väga. Ma panen selle ülespoole.
Kind of works.
Aga see on jumala okas ju.
Arti töötab. Seda peab ainult panema video peale ja siit käime kinni.
Okei, aga ma panengi või?
Paneb käima ära või?
Nii, kuidas seal pilt jäi? Oota, aga seda saab eraldi liigutada?
Ei, liigutame tooli siis ja pärast jumala poole ta võiks minna. Niimoodi või?
See vist on optimaalne, jah.
Või tahame reklaami ka või?
Ja, reklaam on, jah. Okei, jääb see.
Oota veits.
Ma tean, mis see mõtleb.
Ma tahaks seda niimoodi, et ta liiguks ära vaata. Nii, ja nüüd kuidas see on? No, well, could be worse. Aga väga hea vist ei ole.
Reklaam on näha.
Reklaam on näha, aga suurt muud midagi ei ole. Okay.
Anyways, let's gather here because we don't have microphones today, unfortunately, but I think we'll cope with that. We have some loud voices here. So first off, I would like to welcome you all of you here. I'm Kristel. I am the CEO and founder of Testlio. And
I'm Marco, also co-founder of Testlio.
yes, and we started Testlio actually 4 years ago. Today, 4 years ago, we went to a hackathon called Agent Hack, and it's pretty awesome to see that we've been growing so fast over the past 4 years that we can now start giving back to the community, share our knowledge, so we can all become greater than ever. Today we have a panel discussion and also a speech by, or a talk by Helena Jeret-Mäe, who joined us from Nortal. And is there anything else that you add, Marco?
I think that's pretty much it. We do have 4 biotesters from our community that joined us outside of Estonia. They're spending almost a week here, 5 days here in Tallinn. So it's really exciting for them as well as for us. And for Testlio, we definitely hope there's a lot of more that kind of events coming, and we're doing everything from ourselves to do that, to make it happen. A side note, we are always on the lookout for great testers. And also people on any other side of Testlio, whether it's coding or accounting, we definitely need help to make these events more often. So that's it.
Yep.
Without further ado.
So guys, just to check, do you hear me okay over there if I speak that loud?
Yes.
Awesome. All right then, let's kick it off. So our first person that's going to present today is Helena Jeret-Mäe, and she will speak about... I will just let her take it from here, but she will talk about some awesome things related to like how to build successful teams and get their results fast. So the stage is yours.
All right, here are the slides. So I will try to speak as loudly as I can without losing my voice. And I'm very glad to be here today. I'm Helena. I'm head of testing at Nortal currently, and I have a blog with a weird name. The pain and gain of it up here. There's a story for that. And today I wanted to talk about observing a process and how that will help you get the results you want. I may not use the word test a lot today, but a lot of the things that I speak about, you can put into your own testing process, and you can also scale them up to your team processes or your business processes. So a year ago, I spent a week in Albuquerque, New Mexico, learning how to solve problems. Yes, it makes sense to travel to the other side of the world to learn to do just that. And that course is taught by Jerry Weinberg and Esther Darby. And we mostly learned through simulations and reflections after the simulation. So a simulation, it's you get put into a situation and you need to get out of it alive and solve a problem in the process. So you get some sort of a role, you have a scenario, and then you kind of need to survive in it. If you think about the movie Das Experiment, where they had the jail experiment, where some people were jailers and the other were trying to play the captives, and that type of thing, but it didn't get so serious. Almost, we did have a jail element in there. And so we went through the simulations and we learned about ourselves, we learned about solving the problems and how to get it right. And then yes, we failed and learned, and then one of the final exercises was to give a problem to a team. So we were divided into 2, a problem that is challenging but can be solved in 1 hour. So the challenge, the problem that my team had to solve was to put on a musical in 1 hour, produce it. It had to have singing, dancing. It had to have like a program sheet produced, and there were other requirements, original lyrics. So in 1 hour, more than 10 people need to put on a musical. And the question is, how do you do that? So we did it, and it was the best teamwork experience in my entire life. There is one more instance that comes as close. I get like goosebumps when I think about it. And a lot of stuff happened during that hour. I also accidentally kicked somebody in the nuts. I had to take down the bad guy according to the script, and I just got into the character and just apologize every time I see him. And afterwards, when we were reflecting on what happened, we had a box of Kleenex tissues going around because we got so emotional, because solving this problem was so easy. It was so lightweight. It was effortless. And the reason it was so simple was because we had the right process to lift us up and carry through the problem solving. And so this is what I want to talk to you about today. Some stuff I learned in New Mexico and also that I've applied earlier, some ideas about what to do with your process, and then also some tools that you can use to work with your process. So one of the things that we did in that group work that we learned was to shift between content and process. So content is the stuff that you work on, like the content you produce, the stuff you write, and the process is the steps that you need to take to get to the result. And sometimes you take a bunch of people and then you toss them a problem and then they start doing something, and then after a while you don't see any results and they're like, you're smart, why can't you get it done? And so the group that we had there, they were talented, smart, motivated people. And at first, through the first simulation, we failed because we didn't understand how to look at our process and how to, what is the process of coming to an agreement about doing something? Because if you have a group of 10 people and then 3 ones yell yes and the other ones are silent, is that an agreement? Is that the process of reaching an agreement that will take the team forward? Maybe. So one of the things we did was to consciously start moving between the content and the process. So we worked on something for a while. We worked on let's say, creating the lyrics. It could be anything that you need to work on, and then take a step back. And then you look at what you have created and ask, so are we going in the right direction? I mean, it's very common sense, but it takes another step, like kind of into the abstract level of your awareness to notice that you need to take a step back and look at your process. Because you can have a bunch of smart people trying to solve a problem and then produce crap. They don't want to do that, but they just never talked about how they should produce the great stuff. So another thing that kind of precedes getting a problem solved is learning how to observe. And it kind of sounds very obvious, like you observe, you see stuff, and what can be so difficult. The thing is that we also apply filters, like instant filters to what we see to cancel out a lot of the information that we may need to actually make better decisions and produce better work. So this is something that has taken me quite a bit of practice to get right, or at least not right, but at least better. How to describe what the person has done, let's say a team or somebody you're working with, and you're not happy with the result, and then how do you describe the situation objectively without giving, without passing judgment, without using words like good or bad or ugly or pretty or slow or fast, and then ask what actually happened. So this is an exercise where you can go through and compare how you see things, because the thing with filters, and not just coffee filters, is that they're gonna sift things out. Like you're not gonna get all of that stuff. And some of this is interpretations, and humans are very biased animals. We constantly just focus on something and then forget 99% of the information. So practicing observation is key to starting to solve your problems with your process or with the software you're building, or anything else to do with people. And as we all know, software building is a lot about people. So a couple of things on how to sharpen your skills to observe. One of the first things to do is choose just one thing. It could be body language. So if you're working with your team, you could observe how they solve problems. Just like you could look at somebody's hands. What are their hands doing? Or what are somebody's feet doing when they're really nervous, or like what are they doing? You could observe what people say. You could observe when people are silent in your team. Because, well, if somebody is never saying anything, what does that mean? Or you could observe how many times somebody says I, or how many times somebody says we. And how does that change the dynamic in the team? You could observe what people do, like when they step away and kind of resign from solving a problem that the whole team is working on, or when they get engaged, or when they push somebody out. So there are a lot of things, but you can pick just one. Focus on just that one aspect. Is it body language or what people are saying? And cancel out everything else. Take notes. Drop the adjectives. So an example would be if you say the water is hot, that is an interpretation. An objective observation is the temperature of the water is 100 degrees. So this is what would mean dropping some of the kind of evaluations of what you see, and then try to verbalize your observations, and then ask, what are the 3 different ways in which I could understand this? Because your default observation may not be the right one or the useful one. So how about some toast? Here. Some people helped me make toast before, so I have some props. So there's this very simple question. So how do you make a toast? And making a toast takes a process. And people have quite different ideas about what the process may look like. So we have a fairly, it's an anonymous example. It's a fairly simple representation of a process. So it's like, I think it's 2 or 3 steps, right? Can you make a toast using this process? Oh my God, you're asking so many questions. All right, but it's a good question because there are different kinds of toasts. The ones you make on the frying pan and the ones that you make in the toaster, and there's also this American toaster thing where you put it in and it goes out. What?
One type of toast.
Yes, and another type of toast. Yes. There's another one. We also have like a nice 1, 2, 3 steps, but a little bit more detail about where do you exactly you need to put the toast in, and also another one that has some happy faces. This one, nobody's happy after this toast, but in this process, there is somebody who will be happy after getting the toast. So I'm not sure if like the process is that different, but the way in which these people have described the process, it's quite different. And also what I noticed is nobody has said for how long it needs to be in there, or how to get the right like level of toastness or something.
Did they cover? Do you have bread?
Yeah, and then you need to plant the wheat and everything. But it's still the same. Like, how far do you need to go back in your supply chain, or to who are your customers? How do they get to you? How far back do you need to go with the process? Because you're building a product, potentially you're solving a problem. Like, your company is around to solve some sort of a problem, and you need the process for that. So when you look at your process with your team, then it's interesting to see how they can look at the same thing very differently. So one of the things, and this is, I didn't come up with it, I borrowed it from this guy, and if you Google him, you will find the Draw the Toast website, And the next step would be to write all these steps on separate pieces of paper, and then you can cover the wall with these pieces of paper and then figure out what the process is like and what it should be like. So visualization, getting stuff out of people's heads to get them on the same page, literally on the same piece of paper, is a way to work with the process. Identify where's the stuff that you don't need, where's the stuff that holds you back, where's the stuff that you don't like, where's the stuff that doesn't help you. And then I am fairly certain you have heard about Lean and the Toyota way. Not okay, more or less enthusiastically. The Toyota way is an excellent introduction, in my opinion, to Lean. And what Lean processes teach us are different aspects to look at when you want to analyze a process and map it. There's also value stream mapping and other developments. You could look at where you have to wait on something. So a lot of the times, stuff just gets stuck in the processes, and then people get really itchy. So you may look at like people in the process and say like, when people get itchy, we probably have a problem somewhere. The term waste also comes from Lean with regard to processes. So I think looking at those practices is another great way how to get inspiration to evaluate the process. But I also would be cautious, because what I noticed about this is that it's very much manufacturing based, and software is not like making TV sets and putting them together in a factory. So that I would take with a grain of salt, but in terms of how to approach the process and how to break it apart, I think it's an excellent source. And Gerald Weinberg, among all the many things he has given to software testing and the world of software development, also has contributed the MOIGE model. And what it stands for is motivation, organization, information, and then this other four secret component I will get to. This is a tool that you can use when you're kind of a little bit stuck as to what to change. Like you have mapped your process and it's kind of working, but you need another kind of frame or like another set of glasses to put on and look at the process and how your team works. And even though the toast making process is not just about the process really, it's about this whole system, how your team works on a feature, or how your company works on a product, or how you work on your testing assignment. It allows you to draw all the links and the nodes and how they interact. And this model also looks at some of the background things. So when it comes to motivation, there can be such a thing as too much. Like when somebody is really trying to drive you, and then you're like, you're driving me nuts. It's not going to help me. You may need to kind of tone down the motivational part. Sometimes teams, it's not a motivational problem. It's an organizational problem. Is the structure that they have in place helping them or choking them? Is there too much organization, or is there too little? How to get it right? Or is it the right time? Or is there another way? Like these are the other questions to ask. Is it the right time? Can I add more motivation later? Can I add more organization later, or should I do it now? Information. If you're lacking information for your tasks in the process, or the right kind of information, you may need to add it. But sometimes, and nowadays, it's a common problem that people drown in it. So you may want to take some information away from your team just to help them clear the air. And the third one is jiggling. So when you feel stuck, just do something that you normally wouldn't do. I don't know, stand on your head if you can, or do something that turns things upside down, like a little chaos monkey thing, just to get out of the rut. So if you're testing something and you can keep testing the same thing, and you're probably going to be blind to 50% of the bugs by the end of the day. So you need to jiggle yourself sometimes, and sometimes you need to jiggle the team because the process kind of no longer helps you get to the result. And I haven't really talked that much about like the goal setting part and how to get that right, because I think we have like good enough models and kind of smart people usually figure out the goal part, but sometimes they kind of get stuck with the process. And the thing with getting the results, like you have this goal in your head, you have it in your mind's eye, maybe you visualize the future and you drew your ideal result of the world once you have built your product and solved all the problems. The next thing is, what is the right process for that? And how do we figure that out? So to get the right result, you need the right kind of process. Yes, you can just start doing something, but you need to keep asking the question that if I got the result that I got, was that because of the process or was it because I got lucky? Sometimes we don't know. One benefit that I've seen myself and that I've researched is that if you focus less on the result, if you don't just zone in on I need to get this, like this is the holy grail thing and I need to get, and you just get stuck on this. If you let go of that result and focus more on what is right in front of you, the next step, you also liberate yourself to more experimentation. Because then it's not just about, don't bother me with those new ideas, I need to get that result. And you kind of stop asking questions and thinking about new ways. The willingness to experiment is, I mean, it's prerequisite for any success you probably want to have, because we don't have formulas to it. So the experimentation learning cycle needs to keep happening. And that's part of the process. Serendipity, I love this word. This is about the chance of good things happening. And focusing on the process, and then through that, the experimentation will support that the chance of good things happening. And a lot of the times, what serendipity comes from, in my opinion, is getting people to bounce ideas off each other and getting that kind of brainstorming process right in the team. Because when you, again, get people kind of zoned in on just one thing and then kind of like also silo themselves and kind of stop talking, then those things won't happen between them. Like, new ideas won't be born. And also, like I mentioned before, sometimes we do the right thing. Like we have the useful process in place and then we fail. Not everything that you try to achieve in terms of results is under your control. I'd really like to have everything under my control, but damn it, it's not. And sometimes we do the things and we take the steps and oh, success happened. And the question is, did I get lucky, or did it happen because I had the process that got me to that finish line, that got me to that result? Because then you're like, you can learn and say, that was a fairly nice process. These were really useful steps. I should model my behavior. I should learn from it. I should tell others. But you need to evaluate that. Like, was it under your control, or how much of your performance was under your control? So to kind of do the full circle, sharpening your observation skills is something you can practice. It's going to be a little bit weird at first, and it's a general skill for problem solving and also for communication, because when you want to offer somebody really useful feedback, that's what you also need. In Estonia, we have this horrible word, which is stupid. It's a horrible word, because it never tells you what is it that you did that was done well. So when somebody says stupid to me, I'm like, what do you mean specifically? What was it that I did well? Please share an observation with me so I can do it again and be successful. So giving feedback, that also is important. Focus on the process. Don't just think that when I get all the code written and all those things done, then yay! Well, were you even supposed to be writing that code? Was that the first step to take? Or like, what's your bias? What do you typically want to start with? Is that really the right step? Think about the process. Take the step back. Take a coffee. Keep focus from your content board. Visualize. Like me and the marker and the whiteboard, we're married almost. I really like to draw and visualize a model because then I can point at stuff with people that I talk to, because else we're talking about stuff that's in our heads and we can't fix anything. And then make it as light as a feather. Sometimes it is difficult, it doesn't have to be. My most recent example of how it doesn't have to be that difficult and how to make the process of doing something very, very simple. I was at a hotel in Manchester a couple of weeks ago, and in the morning I observed that the doors on the one side, they had handles, and on the other side, they didn't. It was early morning, so I kind of sat down and thought about it, like, why is it? And then I realized, oh yeah, like if it doesn't have a handle, you push it. If it does, you pull it. It's a genius process. It's simple, it's lightweight, it's effortless, and it gets you out or in the door. That's the simplest process that we can build to support us to get it done. And that was it. Thank you. So guys, time for questions. Oliver, I can always count on you.
Yeah. Your biggest mess up trying to implement this?
I think my biggest mess ups were before I knew to pay attention to process.
Okay, but afterwards.
Yes, an internal project where a group of people are trying to implement a company-wide model. This is partially difficult because we couldn't agree on the process, as it happens, but also partially because we lacked somebody to facilitate the process. One of the things about that kind of putting on the musical and how we did it was that we picked the right person to facilitate, the person with the magical touch to help us through, to kind of step in when needed and then immediately step back. And this is what I also feel is, just to elaborate on this, is the function of a great leader, is that they make things very light for you. They take away the heavy stuff and just make it very easy to get it done. So that's what we lacked, and that's I paid the price. Here's a question.
So how do you think QA should solve organization problems if they see organization bug? Should they have authority enough to influence CEOs?
It's not
being
about
them always that you have a bug in the organization, or is it like, well, I can influence the product, but I can't really change the whole company?
You can, but I think leadership is about not saying it but showing it. So I think a lot of the times solving organizational problems or process problems is a lot of people go like, yeah, it should be like this. And they're like, yeah, but we'll just like tweak this or change that. So I think a lot of it about it is taking the responsibility and showing up. But of course, the prerequisite is that you feel confident enough to do it. There are a lot of different dysfunctions in an organization, and I think systems thinking, which I did in the TOAST exercise as well, will help you see where are the leverage points. I don't know where they are in your organization for QA or testing, however you call it. Because sometimes, I mean, I've had to learn how to talk to a CEO so that they actually get what I say. A lot of it is built into the communication, and speaking the business language that they can understand and exemplifying the value. So like there are a lot of steps to figure out there. So I can't give you like a formula, but if you ask whether you can or whether you should try, I'm like, what's holding you back?
I'm not QA, I'm just thinking.
Well, I had to take you as a prop at least to talk to, so. If I didn't answer your question, come back to me.
Do we have any other questions? No? Yes? Oh, Oliver, go ahead.
Okay. Can you put this one slide back? Where we had the list. No. Next this one, yeah. What is the value of focusing on the process? Why is it a focus on process, not like focus on result or focus on goal? What makes focusing on process that relevant, that much more relevant compared to other attributes? I can elaborate why I'm asking. The problem is, as the gentleman I think asked, how do I make changes in organization? It's very difficult to sell idea of process change to a C-level executive, but it's relatively more easier to sell like, okay, if we do this, your profit margin will go up or your customer support cost goes down. So,
but those things you may be able to extract also when you look at your process. Like, what are the wait times in the process? Or, for example, if your process that you have will cause extra work in the background that they haven't really monetize it, like put it into the dollar or euro signs. So, like the processes can also be measured in terms of time and profit. I mean, if you know how much time something takes, you can easily attach monetary value to it. I mean, just take some average hourly fill rate, and there you have it, and then multiply it by people or time or stuff like that. So I'm not. I mean, I can answer that part of the question, which is something that I've done. But the very simple answer is, well, you have the goal, then well, how are you going to do it? Like, what is the first step? What is the second step? How do you put the feet in front of the other? I listened to the podcast once, and it was about productivity and how to get things done, and they said that one of the most common reasons why we can't get things done, like, I decide I'm going to read more books now. Okay. And why people don't get it done is because A, they have not listed the books that they would like to read, then picked a book to read, then set a time and date for when they're going to read the first chapter. And that is process already. But people just kind of think that maybe I will get it done somehow otherwise, and they just focus on the goal and they never read the books because of that. So, or some people don't. So that is just need to know where to start, and yeah. That's the answer. Yes, you need that, but then sometimes you may need a process to figure out, you may have a need first, like a need emerges, and then you have to formulate it. But yes, I mean, you don't just start processing stuff.
Do you think in the future we can automate that process?
You mean thinking? No. That's the human stuff you can't.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much for coming. So we need like, oh yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Why are you?
Yes, I just want to say thank you because you're our first platformer speaker of the event that we will make. And it's super awesome that you got so many listeners. And
I'm very thankful. And any feedback, please write me.
Use we need 5 minutes because we I think there's still some beer or like cider and food in the kitchen, but yeah, we'll do it as fast as possible.
Said kõik või?
Tundub küll jah, ma ei tea, ta noh, nii hästi kui siit saab seda kuidagi suunata. Ma loodan, et see nagu näeb.
Let's find our second panelist. All right, let's start with our panel discussion. So once again, excuse me, can you be quiet? Otherwise, I'm going to yell my voice out. So once again, I just want to thank you all of you for coming here. It's super exciting to do our first really meetup focused on testing, and so therefore we decided to do a panel discussion and talk about the future of testing. So we've seen the decrease of we saw the decrease of the need for testing during the time when web was the main platform for people to use, but now we're moving to mobile. Our software is running our cars and our devices on our hands or whatever it is. So now we just want to talk a bit about the future, and based on statistics, the budget for testing is actually increasing. So from 2012, I think 18% of IT companies' budget went to testing, and now it's getting to 30%. So testing is becoming more and more important, and so we want to talk about how and how it's going to look like in the future. So I would like to welcome our panelists. So first off, I have Sven. So Sven, come here. So Sven is a mobile team lead in Pipedrive. Before that, he's been building different mobile apps for 10 years on various across different platforms. And he also has worked for Skype, Playtech, and he doesn't even remember. That's good. And he actually has a fever, so I'm very thankful for him to come here. So awesome. Then our second panelist is Oliver. Oliver Dahlberg is our own QA manager at Testlio, and he's been with us for more than a year now, and he's managing our most successful customers' projects. And but otherwise, he has over 5 years of experience in testing, and before that, he was in Playtech as well. But he was testing web products. Yay! Then we have Max Kolesnikov, who flew here from Ukraine. So he's one of our strongest community members, and so we're very happy to have him here today. And he also worked at Playtech, and he was testing mobile products. And now he's a full-time freelancer in Testlio. And now the last one is Marco. So Marco is my
not working at Playtech.
Yeah, Marco didn't work at Playtech, that's true. But before Testlio, he was building startups for 10 years, and he has wore different hats while he was building companies, from design to I don't know, to testing, everything basically, right?
As well.
Yeah, exactly. He was doing everything, and so so thanks guys for being here today. And so let's sit down and have a conversation. So first off, we're probably gonna spend 20 minutes just answering my questions, and then another maybe 10 minutes asking. You can ask questions if you have any. Are you ready?
Go. Yes.
Yay.
Oh man, I'm seriously, I'm very scared about public speaking, and so I'm really happy to be here and test my skills again. So it's all about testing and yeah, throwing yourself into not very comfortable situations. So, first off, speaking of testing, so how has it been influenced or shaped by mobile in the last 5 years? Sven, can you start?
So the question is how?
How has it been shaped by, like, has the industry been shaped over the past 5 years by mobile? Yes, exactly. Like, and how has been shaped?
Yeah. So by the way, when I'm slow, it's because of the fever.
Yes.
When I started, it was 2005. So it was way before iOS, way before Android. If some of you remember, there was like a feature phones everywhere. So we had, we officially in Playtech, we supported 600 plus devices. So for testing, it meant that we had a shelf of 30 devices, like in the metallic shell. And then kind of with these 30 devices, because they were all grouped to specific like groups, we kind of said, okay, this is around 600 plus devices we support. And I think the biggest challenge at these times was like, how would you do that? So we had an amazing guy called Tavi, and this guy was amazing. He actually had 2 devices at the same time, holding them and just testing them. And our build cycle was around 24 hours. We produced, I think, if I remember correctly, around 40 different binaries to cover these devices. So he had to install them, run through the smoke tests, and then, you know, done. So I think the challenge was how to cover all these tests manually. So we had to have real devices on the shelf. And this is, I think this is one of the changes. We don't have this anymore. So a lot of software has come on the board and really helped developers to do a lot of things virtually. So when I started writing Android, I was a little bit old school. I actually bought the device and was writing over the wire. You don't do this anymore. Everything is on hardware within your computer through emulator or what so on. So additionally, I mean, these days you have, I don't even know how to call them, but there's like services which you can virtually buy time, or you can buy hardware and then run your tests on it. I think this has changed. So you don't have to own hardware so much. You can use services like, you know, Testlio, which provides a platform. I think this is one of the things that has made things a little bit easier in a way.
But yeah, like I think there are like a lot of automation services out there. Like you can test your app on device cloud, basically. Like,
yeah.
Can you, like Oliver, for example, talk about a bit about like these automation services out there? Like, as you've been like experiencing that with some more bigger customers, like, what's your experience in terms of testing on mobile, and especially like while you were in Playtech, you were testing web, and like, and now you're testing mobile. Like, how has been the shift for you?
I would say I wasn't testing totally web because I was testing the games, like Flash and the C++ platform, what they call like desktop. So in a way, it's similar. Like, okay, Flash is more like web-based, but it's still like have this kind of window, and the desktop client is totally, you will download it on your computer. It can be super like huge of size. But as for testing-wise, I would say mobile apps in a way tend to be more like lightweight or less functionality than web. So in a way, it simplifies it a little bit. But on the other hand, I mean, it can be same on the web as well. But on the other hand, in the web, in the mobile, it can be that you have like lots of different countries. In one country, you have some small addition, some small feature. Like, I guess Uber is a good example where you have like so much customization or like small features in like different countries.
You were visiting Uber's office in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about this experience?
Yeah, it was really nice. I mean, they have like really shiny everything, really flashy, everything's brand new. Everything is like super cool. And yeah, they as well developing kind of simulators to test these different locations. So, for example, if you want to take a test ride in South Africa, then you just plug in your device to the simulator, and then you can just test your feature in the simulator. So this is kind of their lab. So, but yeah, Uber itself is really kind of developers and like unit testing focus. So they really kind of drive that developers are responsible for their code, testing their code, and
So Max, what do you think is the biggest challenge on mobile today with testing?
From the tester perspective, I could say that it became much more interesting, and now it's easier to find something interesting because there are much more environments, different operation systems, locations, etc. So you can easily find direction that you want to follow. And in perspective of general, I think Bash platforms became more and more required now because it became harder to handle such low environments, and if you have a crowd of testers, it's the best solution.
Cool. And now, like a question to Marco, like now talking about all these mobile testing challenges and like where have we shifted? I want to ask a question from you as an entrepreneur. Like before Testlio, you were building like so many different companies and you're always doing everything on your own. Like how do you see the shift has been for you? And
that's a good question. When we
like how has your mindset?
When I met you and you as a software tester, I never used your service myself as a tester. Right?
No.
So that was for me. When you're a small company, or especially when you're a single entrepreneur, you're not really like you want to kick out code as fast as possible or features and stuff, and you don't probably have enough customers as well that are gonna complain about it. Once you start getting enough customers who critical mass of customers who start complaining, or they're too important to even hear one single complaint. And once you get that single complaint, then you start thinking, holy crap, we need to do something about the quality. Right? And before that, you don't have to actually think about quality as well, because in that sense, like if you over-engineer initially, then you might not get actually build up a successful business itself. Right? When it's the same when you are developers and engineers are actually complaining about my code that I built years ago. Obvious reasons. I didn't build elegant systems. I obviously didn't build unit tests and stuff like that. If I would, I don't know if we would be here, right? That's the constant dilemma as well, where when we are today looking for customers, what kind of customers do you look for, and who have more stable needs? And some customers actually come to us and say, okay, we're ready for testing. And after a month, we throw out a lot of huge list of issues, and they discover, oh, holy shit, we don't have time to fix them. And then we realize, okay, we need to actually educate companies to how to handle the load of issues, where to focus, should you fix everything or not. We have different customers who, some of them actually take the whole list and like inbox zero almost, like we have to get it to zero. Is that right? Probably not. When you get bigger, you gotta focus on some percentage, right, on the top and so on. So these are, I think, the different levels of the way you think about testing when you go through life stages of the company.
Thanks. Yeah, it's very interesting. And Sven, regarding that, I have like a question for you now, like that you're leading a mobile team in Pipedrive, and for your information, with some of you that may not know about Pipedrive, Pipedrive is one of the most successful startups out here from Estonia, and they are building a tool for salespeople to manage their pipeline. And regarding that, I have a question for you. Like, do you think there is, like, in terms of building a mobile platform or mobile product for Pipedrive, is there a difference between the users who use your product through the web or there like some kind of difference and like why customers want to use your mobile app, not just do it from the mobile web version?
Yeah, we like to think so.
You like to think so?
And that's actually one of the ways we decided to do our product.
Okay.
There is multiple ways you can do things. You can copy that, right? You can just do full feature parity, invest everything, and just do it. We didn't do it. Because we didn't have people and we couldn't. So that's why we had to start from somewhere. And that wasn't covering all the features. So we decided, okay, let's and another reason why native and why not browser is that, again, browser is one of the most fragmented worlds in mobiles right now. I think in Android only there is almost around 50 or 60 different browser versions. They do not differ majorly, but they do differ. And another thing is like you don't have access to native features. Simple things, sending SMS or making a call, or capturing a call, or integration with contacts, so on. So we were just easy. Let's do native. And why not do feature parity? I think it was a decision, just a strategic decision, and somehow it played well nicely. What we did with our product is we tried to figure out what are kind of these, I call them pillars. So what are these kind of main pillars in PyCharm? And when we found out it's like 4 main pillars these days, I think we're getting another one coming in soon.
Yay!
So like kind of 4 main things you can do with PyCharm, and it's around deals, activities, persons, and organizations. So we basically thought, okay, let's build everything around that. So yeah, it was a decision. No, there's no conflict. And it seems to be the right decision.
Good.
Yeah, it works somehow.
Awesome. And now, so you have a mobile product. How do you decide, what's the mobile testing strategy? Oliver, can you help us answer that question? What do you think are the 3 most important things about coming up with this strategy?
So mobile testing strategy, I guess what tends to happen is how far back you go, devices and stuff like that. So if you ask, for example, let's take iOS for as an example. Everyone thinks that iPhone 4S is still kind of, we should go back to 4S. No one really wants to go back further back. The 4S is kind of the bottom line. And when they get to the 4S, it's relatively small screen. Even performance-wise, it can be. It can bear like that. But the small screen stuff doesn't fit so on. And then suddenly there's a bunch of issues coming only from 4S. And then people say, okay, is it really 4S on the bottom line? Or should it be 5S, which is still relatively small, but still. But at first, let's test everything. Let's try 4S as well. Let's try the small screen, everything. And it's even more in iOS. There isn't too many devices, but as for Android, it's even more kind of jungle. There's millions of devices.
There's tens of thousands of different variations.
A lot of them are exploding these days.
Yeah, exactly. Good, you brought that up.
You gotta wear gloves.
Just to have a proper lab. Because you never know, maybe it's the app. We saw a drop in beta usage, we're maybe it's us.
But people don't think so much about it in Android. For example, I don't know, Galaxy S3 doesn't feel that old of a device, but it's still pretty old, but it's a little bit bigger screen and performance-wise, it's still in a way.
What about the exploratory version versus?
Yeah, exactly. How do you decide? Because the thing is, you could do everything forever. You could test forever and not release your product ever, right? So if you want to release a perfect product, but I don't think it's possible. Where do you draw the line in terms of okay, here's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna there's no bug-free product out there. How do you?
I would say, as mobile apps tend to be a little bit reduced functionality in a way, compared to maybe really heavyweight web apps. And yeah, like exactly what Sven explained, that if you decide to go for the native app, then you have to take some features, for example, and build from there. And I guess it works pretty fine. People start to like go off with exploratory, and it provides lots of bugs, lots of edge cases. Everything's kind of seems to be cool, and bugs coming in, fixing bugs, everything. But at some point, when the product is getting more mature, then people start thinking about that. Okay, how can I have the confidence that I mean, the app still seems relatively simple, but it has like more and more functionality in a way. And if you start thinking about it, then you have to test it for hours to get everything covered. And then yeah, I guess when the app gets more mature, then it definitely doesn't make sense to kind of lose exploratory, but yeah, kind of balance it with progression and add it from there and have this run in parallel.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
We have these questions every now and then. Like, where's the line, right? And that's a good part, because with problems in mobiles, it's like if you do something and you send it out, people react basically on the first, like, you know. But also they have done some research that actually, even though it crashes, if they don't get scared off, they actually might continue using. But that's not what I
Depends on the product.
Yeah, it depends on the product. Yeah, right. So if your Facebook crashes, like, come on, we'll still use it.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is, like, what we do these days, and we should have done at first, but of course, as you mentioned, initially you don't do these things. It's like built-in internal statistics, way to monitor your app basically from day one, and not about so much trying to have your code as golden as possible, but more to be ready to fix when you see increase in any kind of metrics, which is probably saying that your product is unstable. Yes, there is a problem that with mobiles you can't fix things like this, and there's always clients out there which will be crying and having load bills. But I think it's one of the founders of Python actually very well said that maybe we shouldn't be so much on trying to making our product perfect rather than being ready to react fast. And if we find something, just fix it and send it out again. But of course, there is a balance. You don't want to send out fixes every second day.
And in Apple cases, it takes you like 48 hours to release.
It's actually better now.
Or it's better, yeah.
It's better,
becoming
yeah.
better, right?
It's really good. I mean, we have to patch a couple.
You probably have some better partnership with
we would like to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like built-in monitoring and kind of try to monitor and react rather than really try to pull it through with perfect solution.
So Max, can you elaborate a bit more on this as well, like why you were in Playtech especially, and as Sven told, you had like hundreds of devices, and in Ukraine you had the testing team, right? Like, what was your process?
Actually, when I came to Playtech, I started from project where I was fifth person.
Fifth person.
Yeah, there was a person besides me, and there was no process.
No process. Good.
The process was that
You
person
love that.
sitting in front of me
There's
just
always a
saying
process.
me what to do, what to check, and it was our process. So I was participating in building this process from scratch, and actually we had common agile, but adopted for our purposes. For example, we had planned sanity tests on first 3 days of sprint. Sprint was 2 weeks, and usually regression on beginning of second week, etc. Details. But preventing devices, we found that we just cannot check everything every time. So we have found high priority devices and low priority devices, and high priority devices were checked on every sprint, while low priority devices were splitting. This time we're checking this part of low priority devices, and next week we will check this part of low priority devices. While high priority, we're checking everything.
That's how I think about it as well. And But yeah, now we've been talking for quite a long time about like our current processes. Like let's talk about future. Like Marko, what do you think? Like how mobile testing will change like in the next 10 years? And try to think about like a bit like more in terms of we're gonna have software is gonna run our lives basically, right? How it's gonna change? Like,
that's a good question. I mean, I was in Finland, Helsinki
last week.
2 weeks. Last week, I don't know. But we started talking always like every question, even though it was simple, it was meant for like let's talk about future, and then it went like to the far end, so that half the people actually left while the whole panel discussion was going on, because it was so complicated. I mean, when we talk about AI and what it means, and then we went like off the hook, and I don't want to go there today.
Don't go.
I think we do have a much smarter audience. Definitely, we investors and developers and so on. But anyways, I think when you look at the 10 years, the main question is whether the mobile device itself exists in the way it exists today. And it's today already. As a founder of Testlio, constantly you think about, I have to think about these things. What if in 2 years you have this magic leap, for example?
Can you talk about more about like what magic leap is?
Magic leap, it's so secret that I shouldn't know, right? But they came out of with the news covering it now a couple of days ago, and saying it's going to replace everything, your mobile device, your TV, and everything. The main concept is that you put some glasses on, or you, in the future you're going to have contact lenses, and in the end you're going to put something somewhere, which is going to show you everything you want without any device and so on. And then I was watching the Black Mirror TV series, and this is like shows you all the possibilities and all the complications of testing and necessity that it becomes life-threatening when you start integrating all these devices into your system. And I think that's fundamentally, I think mobile is going to be, in 10 years, probably still here, but you're going to have so many other devices that it's going to be even harder to test everything. Right? And then we're going to have the same situation. What kind of devices do we test? Do we test mobile as well? Because mobile tends to be like 10 or 20% of our traffic. Everyone is on their classes and stuff. Then how do you test that? And how do you automate that, right? The automation part, talking about testing automation itself, it's just not realistic to even think about today without the singularity AI to get to a coverage that you would like to have as a developer or app builder, where you don't need manual testing. Right? You still need manual testing, and you cover some part of your application flow with automation. Today, a lot of companies are focusing and trying to find and redefining the bicycle itself on automation, and then everybody's waiting for next solution, and it's almost around the corner, but it's never there. And it's the same thing with web, and you started to see some like Selenium and like recorded and still does record your steps, but the main premise falls apart when you start to where you actually want to release new features as well, and you're fixing all these test scripts on a constant basis. You have a huge team of developers fixing scripts, and other developers who want the scripts to be reliable, but they are not, so they can't use the scripts, and these guys are just focusing on a thing that has return on investment in mind, essentially. So, but yeah, well, even with the premise of mobile like getting more stable, I think that's false hope, and having these perfect systems where you get to close to this automation, or we're going to solve this, it's going to be AI, then we're going to figure something out that's going to break everything. So I'm hopeful that Testlio is going to find the next thing again.
Hashtag hopeful. But how do you think about the future testing? Like while you're building the app for PyTribe, like you think about the future constantly as well, and how you're gonna like approach it in the future, or what's your mindset?
At first, let's talk about the future. I mean, the last 3 months has actually proven that there is almost no way a human being can actually think about the future or think how things would go. So after this morning, I understood the future
What are you
180 degrees.
referring to?
So I think thinking about the future, I would call it let's dream, right? And you were actually dreaming to have that, and you were right. Like we always had this feeling you would never get there. When I started, the world was relatively bipolar. You had bad networks or no networks. You had chip devices or no devices, right? So basically, when we were coding, we were basically counting methods because every method costs us heat, memory. We were reusing fields. You would never do this. Thank you. You would never do this these days. I mean, networking was so bad that we were manually basically optimizing the networking channels. You don't do this these days. You basically get the full JSON, 5,000 lines. You don't care, just parse it as you have, just create strings here and there, forget about it, release, done. Because you have like 2 to 8 gigabytes of memory, 4 cores, who cares?
Why more?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Why optimize?
But to be honest, what I believe is like we will have, and we already actually have, if you have traveled in Asia or in the markets where you have, the mobile is prime, then it's a world where, in the center of the city you have 4G, and you go like 2 kilometers away, you're back on 3G. And hopefully. So that's why in these countries you see a lot of applications supporting offline mode, which you don't do these days, but why would you? You're only online. Another thing is like speeds, just drop basically. Or sometimes, to be honest, there are countries or like you don't want to make an application which relies on a fast speed because it might be costly to the user. But maybe they can't stream. Maybe they have to pay a lot. So I think there are like in India there is a service where you can download YouTube videos overnight so you can watch them in the morning because in the night it's more cheaper to use the network. So I think we're gonna have a lot of this kind of world where networking is unstable. Not so much in Tallinn or in Germany, I don't know, Munich but definitely in countries where actually it might be very interesting to target with the mobile apps. Another thing what I was wanted to mention but I'll also say yes to what you mentioned is security, which I want to bring out. This is something that we tend to forget. We tend to rely on, because this library was written and it has Git 500 stars and 500 pulls, so it should be reliable, right? We trust a lot of code these days blindly. Should be is the question. And I think like a couple of weeks ago, or when was it when the same things that come online these days, cameras or whatever they were bringing down the DNS services. So I think
through CCTV.
Yeah, like what? Really simple thing like this guy out there. So I think these are kind of things that will be interesting to see, like how to cover the world that is multicolored in the technical excellence, and also how to make sure that whatever is talking with you right now is actually secure. So yeah, I knew you were asking this question.
No, I prepared all of you. Well, yeah, well, most. But yeah, like talking from testers' perspective as well. Like,
yeah, same thing. Yeah. Like how would you make sure that your application is covered with all of this, right?
Yep.
So that's a challenge.
That is definitely a challenge. And like Oliver and Max, like, can you elaborate more on the future aspect as well? Like, how do you think about your job as a tester when you're thinking about the future? Like, are you worried about some of the challenges that we're going to have, or do you see that there's going to be like more and more need for testing?
Or are you excited?
Or are you excited about this? Yeah, that's a good question. So, Max, can you?
Actually, yes, I'm excited excited because you have more choice. Watch, car with smart, right? So yes, it will bring more interesting devices, more coverage, and more potential problems. For example, integration with different services. Your phone communicates with watch by Bluetooth, and phone communicates with server by internet, Wi-Fi, or cellular. It's already in communication, right? It's more integration problems potentially coming. And I'm not thinking about what would be in 15 years, but I think that in the next few years we will stay like this.
What do you think about Oliver?
I would say, yeah, definitely more interesting. Even for now, if you take or kind of guide you as virtual reality classes kind of thing, it's definitely like much more interesting, but on the other hand, like more challenging as well. And yeah, even what Nortal kind of described, that for now, like starting to come even like now that you can like all these virtual reality possibilities, they're like used more and more in like daily life products. Okay, right now they're like chunky and big and but I guess just a matter of time when they grow smaller. Yeah, I can go back to this like Uber example for like, and they use as well for the onboarding. They kind of use the virtual reality glasses. So if you want to take a first ride, you can just like put it on, and yeah, they're like working on it. I guess it's not released, but yeah, you can just take a ride in any city. You just have like the virtual customer, which is like real person, and you can communicate with him, have the first ride, maybe a couple of rides, like having really feel confident, and then yeah, you can just like go out on the streets and do your like actual first ride.
I think there's an interesting point which I thought about when asking, are you excited or not as a tester? When people get older, then people start to get afraid of new technologies, right? So when in the threat of testers actually like having a certain like time frame where they're effective because we have new technology coming on, and if you're afraid of the new technology, then you're almost not can't test anymore. Right? It's interesting. Where in 5 years, a tester that was really good 20 years ago, because the mindset of the tester is you have to be really curious and exploring everything and using everything. But when you're afraid of doing that, because I don't know, that's interesting. Because look at my father in the 90s, he was like really techy, right? Set up everything at home, like on all the gadgets and gadgets being obviously cassette recorders and stuff. He knew everything. Today, I gifted as a present in spring an iPhone to him. Every time I go it's actually a big step for him to actually accept that as well. But every time I visit him, which is on a weekly basis, he comes to me and asks all these questions and said, "Oh my God, the iOS update changed everything. I don't want to use this anymore." Right? So that's the kind of users that you have as a tester. It's like being afraid of it.
So again, like you need to have variety of people in your team to like have different perspectives on your product, because it's super important, right? And therefore, like I would actually open up the discussion to the audience. So, do you have any questions? Yes. Oh, go first, and then Helena.
I just want to ask, what do you think is the best way to start learning testing for a college student, for example? And what's the limit? How much do you need to learn before you can start working?
Actually depends on your technical basis, but first thing, yeah, you should obtain technical base, so understanding how things works. You don't have to know programming language, just understand the process of how software works. Be familiar with, if you want to test mobile apps, you should be familiar with mobile by doing Testlio and reproducing issues. So,
What do you think?
Definitely support the idea of doing Testlio. Although we're today, it is a topic that we're discussing, all that have been discussing, because when with Kristel, we started 4 years ago, went to this first site, we put everything, all the ideas into this product that we presented, 25 hours later, we have Testlio University, which doesn't exist today because we couldn't do everything. Now we're getting into this area again, because we have more resources, more people, and we can have people that actually start thinking about it. And we do have discussions today how to, who is a good tester, right? You have to ask that first, and then you have to start asking how to take an average person, for example, my father, and make him a really good tester. How to do that, right? So I don't have the answers, to be honest, but what I know a good tester is or has, it's definitely this curiosity and always, I think all the attributes that Helena brought out are actually the key components, right? Just stepping back and thinking out of the box, and then again thinking why this happened. Reproducing a bug is like completely, that's what it is, right? When you find something, then it gets really exciting. If you're not able to reproduce it, then you're like going crazy as a tester. This makes you excited. You have other people who get frustrated, like I don't want to like find that bug. But I think these are the attributes that make a good tester, right? I mean, if you have that kind of curiosity and attributes, then you don't need too much. You can start right away.
Yeah, and I think I've been a software tester my entire life as well, and I think one way to become like a really good one is to just like reach out to people like the people you want to become, right? Like reach out to the community. Like everyone is so open about like helping each other, but they're maybe not that ready, like they're not showing it, right? But they're always ready to help someone to become better. So yeah.
I'd like to add.
So
You can talk to me about this,
Yes.
but also, as though I mean seriously, because I have coached testers and have helped them. And incidentally, I have been thinking about the testing education problem a lot recently, and this is why I did, with a Dutch friend of mine, we did this experiment called the 4-hour tester, inspired by Tim Ferriss and his 4-hour chef thing. So we did a live experiment on actual junior testers to see and analyze what are the skills, like if I had only 4 hours to teach you, what will I teach you so that you can take these skills, go and test. So we have a website up for that 4-hour tester, and so about that.
Wow,
Very cool. But you had a question as
Yes,
well.
it wasn't like a question, but more like a comment, because it was the data was mentioned, and then the mobile strategy. And I recently talked to some people who have built some successful mobile apps, and they what they told me is that data is not just about the reactive part, but they use that analytical data that they set up and gather to drive the strategy, not just the product strategy, but they're also the test strategy. And all those decisions about iPhone 4S become really easy because it's a business decision whether you're going to set your cutoff at 3% of the user base or 10% as they did, which some people were like, oh my God, you're abandoning your user. They said, well, it doesn't make any business sense. But we have all the data, and we let that data drive, especially if I need to decide whether I want to test something or not. Well, we can get the analytics. We have so many tools. Should we test that? Are users touching it? If they're not, well, what if we just cut it and kind of save money on developing or testing it? So I think that's the kind of
If data drives the product. I know a lot of companies where data is not driving the product.
Yeah, becoming
Actually,
data-driven
a lot of
is
successful companies are driven by bad initially. I'm bad, electric car, what do you mean? So yeah, it's one of the ways. True.
Yeah, data-drivenness is important in that regard, especially you mentioned a lot about the fragmentation. Like it doesn't seem like it's going away anywhere. It's just morphs into other fragmentation application, so you need the data and now you have the solution.
I mean, you're totally right, and these tools are like fairly available these days. I mean, we do most of our data analyzing either in-house or because we can, or basically we started with a bunch of free tools. Like just 2 lines to install and you already get, device, global reach, networking, stability, real-time exceptions, and you can start from there.
Okay, so we had another question from Mike.
Yes, I had a question to Sven. So in PipeDrive, you have a professional platform, right? Where professional people usually use it for sales pipelines.
Not only.
They
can be also unprofessional.
My question is about testing, how you approach it, like how important it is for you to use like specific professional people to test the apps or the processes that come, or it's not important. How do you?
It is. It's getting more important these days. PipeDrive, when we started, and I admire this, I still do. I mean, there is a very strong understanding what is needed, like through the product, feature-wise, and so on. But I think lately we are now playing the game of actually trying to understand our users, and that's a challenge to actually reach out to them and trying to get them. Also, they might be a little bit biased. They never know who we are reaching out to and why they are talking, because they want to tell you something is wrong or whatever. But that's one of the things we try to do these days, reaching out to clients and doing that kind of tests on them and real use testing. So, but there is also very strong understanding what the product has to do. So it's more like an additional input to verify our beliefs.
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead. Oh.
I stand up.
Yeah, stand up.
Can
you introduce yourself?
My name is Arts.
Hi, Arts.
Yes, for one. I'm, to be honest, I'm quite novice in the field of software engineering or testing as a whole. But so the only test suites that I've created is like a set of procedures that have some hard-coded values in it. So I wanted to test a bit doing that or that and so on. Just recently, I read an article about a program called CLE, which is a symbolic execution engine, or concolic testing program. What the CLE does is it reads the code that you want to test, and in the case of like if statements or so, thinks about what could be the possible values for this function and so on, or this statement and so on. So what I wanted to know if whether you have implemented symbolic execution in your professional career, or how do you see this impacting the mobile devices and mobile testing in the future?
Sven, do you want to take it? Yeah,
So
take it.
it's going to be a short answer. There was a project in Skype. We actually wanted to try out something, to actually build it, like to try out some tools and try to do some automated testing. And, I remember a discussion with one of the developers was similar. Like you can write the test so that please put data into that field which is identified by that internal ID, and then press that button which is identified by that internal ID. This internal ID is generated by the code, so it's the code. The problem with this approach is like, this is not how users work, right? User doesn't look at the field, looking at it like, oh, this is the unique ID, that field that I have to put data in, and then press that button identified as this hash. No, user looks into the screen, tries to find the field, and then tries to find this button that might not look like a button, and might not even find that. So I think this is the problem with these kind of approaches. They are non-human. They are valid for automation. You're totally fine. You can cover some of the edge cases. That's fine. These guys who will come in and they don't see the button, or they are unable to switch the. They open up the virtual keyboard and it's numeric. How the hell can I turn back to the alphabet? Like, what happened? So I think that's the challenge. Yes, should do that, but definitely that's not like shouldn't be like a full. Like this will not stamp your code or your quality, but that's one of the ways of doing it. And yeah, basically we understood very early that this is not how the user behaves, and we turned into full black box testing. even that wasn't really nice. Basically, there are tools out there which you can say like, find this field which is described like this, and if it's there, just put some data in and then find that button and press that. But even that doesn't give you the full 100%. So I don't know if that answers.
I think that this framework was meant for like code level.
Static.
Try this value, try this value.
Yeah.
Which is very like unit test, like
Exactly.
for unit testing, right?
It's a very small part of testing.
Yes, that's a small part of testing, and with unit testing itself, you obviously have all these cases, what values to put in, and it seems like it might be. It's an interesting idea, but for me, it seems like it creates a lot of overhead of okay, it puts in a lot of values, but are they actually like necessary? Because actually, users are probably never going to put that value there. Obviously, you have to think about security testing and the edge cases. We shouldn't have strings in integer values, but that's already you can solve that with. Types in different languages and so on. So,
Yeah, like in case of like if you want to test the login, the happy path is like everything is fine, but what if like you have a different device or like a different operating system or like a network speed or you're gonna forget your password, like what's gonna happen then, right? Like there's so many cases that like the automated tests can like never cover everything. Right? So
yeah, this is what I wanted to say also. Like this is where the product meets coder. Or product owner meets the coder and the other way around. Generally, product owners are talking to in positive flows. User types a username, password, presses button, logs in, and everybody's happy, right? And maybe if something happens, put this red notion here and just say something happened. So this is like the way of product is being built, which is fine. But I think this is where engineers have to come and say, but wait, like I have 3 exceptions here I need to cover. A, B, C. Like there's an interesting example I can give you. If you integrate Google sign-in into the Android platform, then there is a way for Google sign-in process to give you an exception, and you can handle that exception and show it to the screen like, sorry, and this would be probably the negative flow a product owner gives you. But there's technical way to take this exception, give it back to the system, and make system to handle it. System might understand, wow, you're missing Google Plus packages or whatever, you're missing something, let's download it. But this is you, the engineer, who knows this edge case. So you can automate these things how much you can, but there is still knowledge from the product owner and then specific knowledge from the engineers, and they come together and then decide, okay, which one we should automate, which one we should do monkey testing, or the name. So automation, definitely yes, but this is just one of the stories.
all right, let's take one more question and then so we have a question from there.
Yeah, I was thinking about how would you describe quality and how would you measure it? And could you put it into 2 or 3 sentences if you think about it as a process?
Who wants to take that?
I know as a tester, I want to ask questions, but quality is relative, I would say. And next up, I would ask a lot of questions.
Did that answer your question?
No, I mean, you guys can answer yours.
Yeah, quality is a decision. You decide what quality is. It's either like 100% unit testing coverage, or Testlio testing 10 hours in code. You define it, what quality is. In our case, we define it. We define it with a bunch of things. Like I can give you an example. One thing, we look at the user responses. So we try to work directly with users through ratings. So we monitor our ratings. Basically, we answer every below 5-star rating has been relatively well accepted to get our ratings up, because users see that they are kind of approached. Another thing, what we do is how we react to specific exceptions. We have monitoring in place, real-time monitoring. But if there is an exception, and there is like a bunch of exceptions which are coming in every time I update the releases. I know they have been there for day 1, and I'm not gonna fix them because it's just 0.01% of the users. So I'm trying to see if I see patterns, and then figure it out if this actually matters. But I think the more in Pipedrive, this is very interesting. Pure mathematics. Like if you have 0.1% users, having an exception, then with 1,000 users, that's nothing. But with 100,000 users, you will definitely have a couple of guys calling in to support. So in a way, it's kind of daily monitoring, but in a way, it's also a lot of, you have to define what it means. You define your SLA basically. It's kind of support level agreement. So basically, it's like you define a bunch of things that are okay. Like it's okay to have requests be 0.5 seconds long. And if somebody says, so it's okay to have 0.1% of exceptions. That's fine. We can handle this.
Right then. Yeah, let's get this together. Thank you for all of our amazing panelists. I think just to conclude, I think the future is bright. That's it, and awesome, and exciting.
Sorry, guys.
And scary. But it's fine. You just keep going and never give up.
Thank you, Kristel, for leading this awesome panel. And thank you,
you
everyone, once again, for making it. You can find us now and ask any questions. We'll be happy to answer.
Yes, and if we have like any snacks or like beer left, then take it. And also, if you want to check out our office, go ahead. I'm gonna give a tour to a couple of people here, so feel free to follow me and ask questions. Thank you. Ciao. Läheme juurile või? Tuul, et näiteks aku pidas vastu või?
Ta oli juhada, sul juhe on ka sinna, võta see ka kaasa.
See on siit ümber nurga poole, lähed köögist mööda ja siis kohe ärgad. Thanks, et tulite.